And the news begins in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu is expected to meet with the leadership of the Organised Labour in continuation of discussions on a new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said the president will meet with the labour leaders to finalise their thoughts, and then he will make his informed decision known to Nigerians by also sending it to the National Assembly. He said the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Atiku, has been directed to come up with a proposal for an amendment act to the 2024 Appropriation Act to be sent to the National Assembly. The president is expected to make a decision on the 62,000 naira proposal of the government and private sector side, as well as the 250,000 naira demand of the Organised Labour. The current minimum wage is 30,000 naira. And let's also tell you that the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory in Maitama, Abuja, has reinstated Philip Shaibu as the Deputy Governor of Edo State. Justice James Omotosho held that his impeachment by the Edo State House of Assembly was illegal and in gross violation of the provisions of both Sections 188 and 35 of the 99 Constitution as amended. My colleague Marvelous Obomanu, who has been following the case, gives us details of this ruling and details and developments ahead of governorship election in the state. Take a look.
While reinstating Philip Shaibu as a deputy governor of Edo State, held that all his salaries, allowances, and benefits should be paid to him from April 8, when he was illegally impeached, until the expiration of his tenure. Shaibu was impeached during a section of the Edo State House of Assembly, in a move followed by the soured relationship between Edo State Deputy Governor and his governor. Justice Omotosho, however, issued an order of perpetual injunction restraining Governor Godwin Obaseki and the Edo State House of Assembly from stopping Shaibu from performing the functions of his office. Also, in a related case filed by Philip Shaibu challenging the nomination of Asue Ighodalo as the People's Democratic Party candidate for the 2024 Edo State governorship election, Justice Omotosho dismissed the suit, saying the plaintiff's case lacked merit as they failed to provide sufficient evidence to prove that Ighodalo had forged his voter's card.
The first and second defendants are the first and second plaintiffs. That is Philip Shaibu and Adizetu Umoru had no locus, because this honorable court had earlier on held that they were not aspirants in that primary, and there is no judgment contrary to that as at today. So they had no business coming to court at all. On the merit of the suit, His Lordship went into details and held that when you are alleging that somebody has forged a document, that is a very, very, very serious allegation. And surprisingly, the plaintiffs made that allegation against a very prominent person like Dr. Asue Ighodalo, who is about 40 years old as a member of the legal profession, an erudite and world-acclaimed personality. The court went into the thing and discovered that it was all a fluke. Not a scintilla of evidence was brought before the court to prove their case. More damaging to the plaintiff is that INEC, which is the issuing authority of permanent voters' card in this country, came to court and said that that voters' card was not forged. They issued it and confirmed and authenticated it. What more?
Meanwhile, Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court adjourned proceedings in the alleged money laundering case instituted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against a former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, to September the 25th, 2024. The judge held that proceedings would continue despite the appeal filed by the defendant on jurisdiction at the Court of Appeal in Abuja.
The court also granted Adoala's application to step down from representing Yahaya Bello in this case. In Abuja, for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
Still on this matter, earlier we were joined by the Special Advisor to the Edo State Governor on Media Projects, Crusoe Osage, to discuss this further. Take a look.
The candidacy of Dr. Asu Ighodalo as the candidate of the PDP in the governorship election for 21st of September 2024, and also throwing out allegations by Philip Shaibu and his cohorts that sought to claim that Asu Ighodalo had forged the voter's card. For me, that's a more consequential decision. For the other decision, which is the one faulting the impeachment, I think that is not a very consequential decision in the sense that Obaseki runs his tenure to an end on November 11, 2024, which is just barely 4 months from now. This judgment that Philip Shaibu has received is just temporary. We have since sought for a stay of execution, and we are going on appeal, and that matter can go all the way to the Supreme Court. So in our estimation, the appellate court and the Supreme Court will eventually right the wrong that has been done, at this level of court, and Philip Shaibu stands impeached, and he will never be deputy governor in Edo State again. The substantive and incumbent deputy governor of Edo State is Marvelous Omobayo Godwins.
More political crisis, this time in Rivers State, amidst the ongoing crisis in that state, which has set one's allies against one another. Governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party in Nigeria have pledged their support for Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Now, the governors on the edges of the PDP Governors Forum were in a meeting at the Enugu Government House on Wednesday with 11 governors in attendance as well as other party stakeholders. News Central Chinwe Ugeli reports.
Apparently, the meeting was convened knowing that a lot of issues needed to be addressed by the leaders of the party in some of the People's Democratic Party's controlled states. It was a closed-door meeting that had past elected politicians, state chairmen of the party, as well as the Board of Trustees chairman in attendance. After their deliberations, the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, Bala Mohammed, read the communique which touched the state of the party. The forum also talked tough on the two off-cycle elections coming up in Edo and Ondo states, urging the president to exhibit democratic tendencies.
Urges the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to provide a level playing field that guarantees transparent, fair, and unimpeachable elections, as any act of bias will be totally resisted.
On the Rivers crisis, the forum declared support for Governor Siminalayi Fubara.
The forum knows the crisis in Rivers State of the party and commits to supporting the governor of Rivers State, and also resolve that the issue could be done through the political solution that will be required and other measures that all the leaders, the organs of the party will be committed so that we can go together and resolve this issue with minimal friction and division or rancor.
The forum blamed the APC-led federal government for the state of the nation since assumption of office and assured the citizens that by 2027, the PDP will take over government and restore the past glory.
The forum regrets that the 16 years of tremendous development under the PDP-led federal government, during which the country witnessed single-digit inflation, the establishment of the existing anti-corruption institutions, and higher standards of living for every Nigerian has been eroded during the lifespan of the lackluster APC-led federal government.
The PDP Governors Forum also made its position known on the ongoing negotiations between Labour and the federal government.
The Labour's demand for a substantial salary raise is eminently justified and therefore commands the total support of the forum. B. While the forum fully supports Labour's demand, agreement must take into consideration the ability to pay by the subnational, the federal government, and the third tier of government.
The forum, whilst aligning with the Supreme Court's ruling on local government autonomy, wants the implementation to be properly done. The forum, however, called on all Nigerians to refrain from anarchy. In Enugu for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
The Nigerian Senate has removed Senator Aliyu Andum as the chief whip, replacing him with Senator Aliyu Mungunu. The change followed a directive issued in a letter by the national chairman of the party, Umaru Ganduje, and National Secretary Senator Bashiru Ajibola. The letter was read during plenary, and the request was to put to a voice vote, by Senator President Godswill Akpabio, receiving loud affirmation from all APC senators. The APC accused Andum of making hurtful comments against President Bola Tinubu's administration. In a recent interview, Andum alleged that some ministers and lawmakers could no longer reach Tinubu to relay the prevailing economic hardship and hunger in the country.
Provide the sum of 3,200 billion only for renewed hope infrastructure projects and other critical infrastructure projects to be undertaken across the country, and the sum of 3 trillion only to meet further recurrent expenditure requirements necessary for the proper operation of the federal government, expenditure which are to be funded by expected revenues accruing to the federal government of Nigeria. Furthermore, the proposed amendments to the Finance Act 2023 are required to impose a one-time windfall tax on the foreign exchange gains realized by banks in their 2023 financial statements to fund capital infrastructure development, education, and healthcare access, as well as public welfare.
President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of DD Eshaya Jack, OON, as head of the Civil Service of the Federation with effect from August 14, 2024. Wilson Jack was appointed as Federal Permanent Secretary in 2017 and has served in several ministries. The new appointee will take over from the incumbent head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi Eson, CFR, who is due to retire on August 13, 2024. President Tinubu, while thanking the outgoing head of service for her stewardship, tasks the incoming head of service to discharge her duties with innovative flair, integrity, and adherence to the extant laws or rules and regulation of the Civil Service of the Federation. On to Nigeria's economy, where the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria (MAN), and the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture (NACIMA) have blamed the government's hastily implemented policy shifts for the current socio-economic crisis facing the country. NECA President and Chairman of Council Taiwo Adeniyi expressed concerns that the removal of the fuel subsidies and exchange rate liberation have caused significant market distortions and increased business costs, leading to a contraction in business activities since May 2023. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria (MAN) also highlighted challenges such as foreign exchange volatility, inadequate power supply, and high inflation as major issues impacting their operations in the first quarter of 2024. These challenges, according to MAN, resulted in a 20.7% increase in production and distribution costs during this period. Earlier, we're joined by an economic analyst, Akin Fatukun, to discuss this further. Take a look.
Physical inconsistencies and inefficiencies not marrying itself with what we are having in the monetary policy. We have supply chain disruptions, we have currency fluctuations, we have high energy costs, and of course, food inflation, you see the numbers beyond 40%. 40% lately is gone off the roof. Added on to that, inherent problems of security, farmer herdsmen, alleged, if you permit me to put it that way, some funny action by nationals. When I say that, I hear that sometimes food that are supposed to come from the north is being hijacked, and vice versa. So imported inflation is already carrying the day. Well, you must also understand that these factors impact businesses in no small measure. And so the same man and, the captains or those who are supposed to be manning the captains of industry will not be making those statements they are making out of tune. We've got to listen to them because they increase their production costs, they reduce their profit, they reduce their margins, and are affecting investment decisions, long-term investment decisions.
That was economic analyst Akin Fatuke talking to us, discussing earlier, giving a reaction to stakeholders' criticism of the federal government's hastily, as they describe it, hastily economic policies, which they believe is dwindling the socio-economic status of Nigeria. You're watching News Now on News Central TV. We go on a short break. Stay with us. Reactions have followed the federal government's decision to distribute 20 trucks of rice to each of the 36 states to alleviate hunger. Now, many Nigerians have expressed their dissatisfaction with the government's palliative measures, which they believe are often inefficient and ineffective and serve as opportunities for misappropriation of public funds. News Center's Eshaya Jack reports.
Many ways the Nigerian government have tried to douse the tension of rising inflation in the country and hunger is through the distribution of palliatives among residents. But this has been many times criticized due to the unequal access to this distribution by many Nigerians across the country.
At the conclusion of the recent Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, announced to journalists that the federal government has dispatched 20 trucks of rice to each of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
This is part of the measures that government is taking, in addition to so many other ones, to ensure that the hardship being experienced by Nigerians is drastically being ameliorated.
But the recent initiative by the federal government has sparked divided opinions among Nigerians. Due to past experiences, many citizens express distrust in the government's promises. Some argue that the distribution of palliatives has been ineffective.
It will ease the hunger in the land, but my concern is that how are they going to distribute that will reach the people that needed because we have seen many things like that. Many palliatives, but it will not reach down to the grassroots. That's the issue.
For residents like Adebayo and Taiwo, it's not just about the ineffective distribution failing to alleviate the food crisis. They are calling for a focus on tackling inflation to reduce the prices of fuel and other essential commodities.
To me, I believe there are other ways that things can be done, by bringing down the fuel costs, to bring down the cost of living and everything generally, instead of trying to put the fish in our mouth.
Àwọn tó ń ṣe pátì, àwọn ará wọn ló ń pín lọ́ndà ara wọn, wọ́n bá la ṣe mítìnì, àwọn ò rí o, gbogbo mẹ̀kúnnù tó ń tajà tó ń jáde, rí ráìsì kankan, kọ́ máa wulẹ̀ fún wa ráìsì mọ́. Kó bá yẹ pé bọ́dà lè fẹ́ ṣí kọ́ ṣí fún wa, kí oúnjẹ máa wọlé, gbogbo wa máa rówó fi rà, kọ́kàn wa balẹ̀, kí gbogbo nǹkan kó lọlẹ̀, torí ebi pọ̀ ń lù, ebi pọ̀ o.
Since the abrupt incursion of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, palliatives have become the socio-political norm for the federal and state government in Nigeria. While these measures may have temporarily alleviated the hunger of the vulnerable, they are widely seen as piecemeal interventions. Instead of addressing the root economic issues, these short-term solutions fall short of implementing the necessary economic structures and systems needed to tackle the country's economic challenges effectively. In Lagos, for News Central, Eshaya Jack.
The Council of Registered Builders in Nigeria has called on lawmakers to enact a national building code that will help mitigate future building collapses and ensure safer structures in the country. Now, this was as the council spoke to newsmen in Abuja over the recent spat of building collapses in the country. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai completes the story.
Recent spate of building collapses in Nigeria has sparked widespread concern among developers and residents. The alarming trend has left many Nigerians in a state of perpetual fear, questioning the safety of buildings across the country. In response to the incidents, the Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria attributed the main cause of the problem to the non-adherence to standard building construction practices.
Our findings indicate that a major cause of building collapse is traceable to the non-observance, or at best, weak enforcement of standards for planning, design, construction, and maintenance of buildings. This has encouraged quackery among active participants in the building construction process and the proliferation of substandard building materials in the sector.
The president of the council also called on lawmakers to enact a law that will enforce the provisions of the National Building Code.
If you go ahead and disregard the services of a professional and embark on an activity that you are not trained to embark upon, then that's a criminal offense. And that is why our first call is that this National Building Code, which stipulates how every building in Nigeria should be constructed and by whom, should be backed up by a law. And that will make that offense punishable by law.
The Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria is urging the government to embark on a building condition survey of all existing structures in order to identify and prevent future building mishaps. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
The General Officer Commanding 3 Division and Commander of Operation Safe Haven, Major General Abdusalam Abubakar, has restated his commitment to ridding the entire Joint Operations Area in Plateau State of all forms of criminality. Major General Abubakar, represented by the Media Officer of Operation Safe Haven, Major Ali Danja, was speaking during a press briefing in Barking Ladi local government area of Plateau State. According to him, the media brief became necessary after conducting an operation to recover arms from gun runners' hideout at Sangasa village in the Fan district of Barking Ladi area council. News Central Chizoba Anionwe was there and now reports.
Over the past 2 decades, some local government areas have suffered attacks by unknown gunmen for reasons ranging from cattle rustling, underage grazing, and destruction of farmlands, among others. In the face of these criminal activities, the Nigerian military says it will stop at nothing to ensure an end to all forms of illegalities in the state. It was during the raid that 8 suspects were arrested for various crimes.
Let me therefore seize this opportunity to reiterate that 3 Division and Operation Safe Haven will leave no stone unturned in its quest to mop up illegal arms and ammunition within the joint operation areas in line with its core mandates. We therefore urge the general public to continue to collaborate and avail security agencies with credible information that will aid in securing the law-abiding citizens in the joint operation areas.
With the cache of arms and ammunition recovered in the hideout of the gun runners during the raid by troops of Operation Safe Haven, it is a call to state actors to redouble their efforts to the challenge and threat of both lives and property in society.
Following the incident, troops conducted a follow-on operation in the district to recover illegal arms and ammunition and other dangerous weapons. During the operations that lasted for 1 week, the team arrested 7 suspects and recovered both automatic and locally fabricated weapons, as well as different caliber of ammunition.
Timothy Zaka, also known as Timaya, Sam P., Dachung Job, and Yakubu Ishaku had been declared wanted for illegal possession of arms that led to the operation.
Load! Present! Fire!
That was the last mark of respect for Christopher Agwom. He was the Assistant Superintendent of Immigration, attached to Sector 4 of Operation Safe Haven. He paid the supreme price last week during the operation that led to the arrest of these suspects and their arms.
Now, with all these efforts put in place, both human and material resources by the Nigerian military to ensure that there's maximum peace in every community that makes up every state in the country, it is expected that members of the public put in their best also to ensure that there's maximum peace in Plateau State. From Barikin-Ladi local government area of Plateau State, Chizoba Anyonwe, reporting for News Central.
And now to education. In a move towards ensuring safe and secure educational environments across Nigeria, stakeholders held a public hearing to address pressing issues affecting schools nationwide. News Central's Chidinma Ona shares more in this report. Take a look.
In March 2024, over 100 students were kidnapped in Kuriga town in Kaduna State. In the same month, gunmen kidnapped at least 15 students from a school in Sokoto State. In July, 22 children died and at least 132 were injured after a school building collapsed in Plateau State. These recurring events have prompted actions from stakeholders urging the government and school authorities to take action towards securing safer learning environments.
In 2021, there is a national policy on safety and security of schools. And since that 2021, nothing much has been done in terms of implementation. We might not be there now, but at least we must begin to plan, to have a school that is safe and secure.
We need to create safety awareness in our community. And let us start from our community. I hope we will try for each of our institutions, and that's a challenge. Let's develop our implementation plan.
For students, the fear of being exposed to threats and unexpected events such as violence, chaos or insecurity crosses their minds often. Although in regions that seem safer, students across the country can help but wonder what the case might be if situations were reversed.
As human beings, we prioritize safety first, and whether or not you're a student, you want to be safe. So I don't think anyone would want to be in an unsafe environment. Being in constant fear of danger every day, waking up every day and being in constant fear that something may happen on that day or any other day is not a way to live. So, I know it will be terrible, but I don't wish to experience it.
So imagine having to go and then you are looking back and thinking about collapsed buildings and terrorists catching you and all that. I wouldn't go. I'll just be at home and learn the basics from my mother, be a good housewife. Normally, the pressure in school is a lot. And then not having to think about forces that are beyond your control. That's something else I would be out of my mind. And I would not want to be in such an environment.
There are a lot of things to be done by the government, ensuring adequate security. Because there's a huge difference between getting somebody to stay at the gates of a school as a security man than actually providing security for students and ensuring that there are adequate infrastructures in place to prevent issues of kidnapping and so on.
To ensure the safety of students, teachers, and staff in educational institutions, all hands must be on deck with assistance from the government by employing necessary measures to curb the menace of violence and insecurity in the country. In Lagos for News Central, Chidinma Ona.
Nigeria's federal government says that it will harness potentials from the nation's diaspora community to foster growth and development of the country. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs made this known while receiving President Joe Biden's Advisory Committee on Africa Diaspora Engagement in Abuja, saying that diaspora remains one of the major pillars of Nigeria's new foreign policy objective. Amadin Uyi reports.
The Nigerian delegation to also...
It was the first visit to Africa, and this time, the Minister of Foreign Affairs by President Biden's Advisory Council on African Diaspora Engagement. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs informed the delegation that the current government has placed a lot of significance to the nation's diaspora community and hopes they can contribute to the growth of the nation.
As you may be aware, diaspora is one of the 4 Ds of the Tinubu foreign policy doctrine, so we attach great significance and importance to the diaspora. We want to see a situation where contributions to our GDP by our ever-growing diaspora expands, it increases. It is also something that we feel has not been utilized by Nigeria as it should be.
The delegation commended Nigerians living in diaspora, saying everywhere Nigerians have migrated to, they have become a force to reckon with as they bring so much value on board.
The largest diaspora people in America are Nigerian, and they bring a lot of wealth to the country, whether it is business, medicine, you name it, you bring it to the country. And we are very committed to encouragement, empowerment, and engagement so that we can bring out the best.
The minister expressed hope that Nigeria can foster an immeasurable relationship with its diaspora community. He also hopes that engagements, which has held in previous years, can continue as in the past.
We're looking to reconnect. We're looking to foster that relationship, and it was serendipitous that President Biden inaugurated this advisory council, and for us, we're looking forward to good things.
The Presidential Advisory Council on Africa Diaspora Engagement was established by President Biden via Executive Order 14089 during the 2022 U.S. Africa Leaders Summit and was formally inaugurated in October 2023 by Vice President Kamala Harris. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Stakeholders from the mining sector in Africa have called for effective utilization of available material or mineral resources to help drive growth, economic prosperity, and empower marginalized communities. Now, this was as they converged on the nation's capital, Abuja, for the 2024 African Natural Resources and Energy Investment Summit, where they say mineral resources, when properly harnessed, can help break the cycle of debt and poverty. Our correspondent Joshua Imarayi has more of the details.
The 2024 African Natural Resources and Energy Investment Summit themed leveraging natural resources for economic growth. As energy and mining experts converge, they emphasize the urgent need to harness Africa's vast resources to drive economic growth and prosperity across the continent.
Africa holds vast potential in the sphere of local value addition. It is not merely about extracting minerals, but about processing and refining them, thereby adding significant value to our God-endowed natural resources. This approach can bolster our economies and offer livelihoods to our burgeoning population.
We are therefore committed to creating a business-friendly environment that encourages foreign direct investment and fosters mutually beneficial collaborations. By leveraging global expertise, technology, and capital, we can transform our natural resources into a catalyst for sustainable development all over Africa.
One of the things that we are striving from this summit is to build collaboration and cooperation between different actors that we have in the sector. We believe that governments cannot do it alone and private sector cannot do it alone. In fact, even the private sector of our respective countries can't do it alone.
As the summit's deliberation progressed, participants expressed optimism that solution-oriented ideas will emerge
and help shape the future of Africa's mining and economic sectors. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
And the news continues in East Africa. Kenyan police said late Wednesday that no demonstrations would be permitted in the center of the capital, Nairobi, following deadly anti-government protest. According to the police, the decision has been taken after officials received credible intelligence that organized criminal groups are planning to take advantage of the ongoing protest. The country has been riled by initially peaceful rallies sparked by now abandoned tax hikes, which degenerated into violence that has left scores dead. President William Ruto has scrambled to calm the situation, scrapping the proposed finance bill containing the tax increases, dismissing his cabinet and promising government cuts. But the rallies, while much smaller than last month, have continued across the country, with many still calling on the Kenyan leader to resign. And in Southern Africa, a Zimbabwe court has denied opposition leader Jameson Timber and more than 70 others bail on charges of holding an unlawful gathering. Timber, his son, and other members of the official Opposition Citizens Coalition for Change were arrested on June 16th at his home in Herrera, Avondale, a suburb, and charged with disorderly conduct and participating in an unlawful gathering. Zimbabwe's opposition has faced a wave of arrests after disputed August 2023 elections in which the ruling ZANU-PF won a majority in parliament. Critics have long accused ZANU-PF, in power since independence in 1980, of stifling dissent.
We have already petitioned SADC, drawing their attention to the injustices that are happening in Zimbabwe. And we are saying to SADC, you cannot come on the back of harassment and intimidation and detention of opposition leaders, democracy and human rights activists, so just to accommodate SADC.
So basically, this was an appeal, determination, wherein the activists, the 78, were challenging the decision of the court, the lower court, which denied them bail. And the outcome was that the court...
And on to North Africa. 38 sub-Saharan African migrants were arrested in Tunisia on Wednesday after clashes with coast guards who intercepted their boat during an attempt to migrate to Europe. According to officials, the migrants were said to have attacked a coast guard during an attempt to prevent them from setting off from the coast of the central city of Sfax, which is Tunisia's main departure point for Italy. Tunisia and neighboring Libya are major departure points for migrants attempting perilous sea crossings to Europe. Now, Tunisian Interior Ministry confirms that around 23,000 irregular minors or migrants, are currently present in the country. Libya, along with European and African countries, have agreed to establish investment projects in Africa aiming to curb irregular migration to Europe during an international forum on migration. Participating countries agreed to form a working group that would identify priority development projects in African countries that are the source of migration. Libya, about 300 kilometers from Italy, is a key departure point for migrants, primarily from sub-Saharan African countries, risking perilous Mediterranean sea journeys to seek better lives in Europe. But with mounting efforts by the European Union to curb irregular migration, many have found themselves stranded in Libya and other North African countries.
عن رؤيتها لمحاولتها ربما لإيجاد شراكات حقيقية في إفريقيا مرتبطة بالتنمية، مرتبطة بدعم سوق العمل في هذه الدول، مرتبطة بمشاريع، لكنها ترى هذه المشاريع يجب أن تكون ناجحة اقتصاديا ذات جدوى مشاريع.
U.S. President Joe Biden tested positive for COVID-19 during a campaign trip to Las Vegas on Wednesday and is suffering from mild symptoms. The announcement came minutes after the head of a Latino union said Biden had called to apologize that he could no longer address its members because he had been diagonized. It also comes as Biden is under growing pressure to drop his re-election bid against Donald Trump after a disastrous debate performance sparked concerns about his age and health. However, the 81-year-old Biden said he is feeling good, giving reporters a thumbs up as he leaned out of his limousine before boarding Air Force One to head for isolation at his beach home in Rehoboth, Delaware. And still on U.S. elections, Donald Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, formally accepted his nomination to be the Republican Party's vice presidential candidate in a keynote address during the Republican National Convention. With the proposed VP, Vance lit up the convention on Wednesday with a speech leaning heavily on his personal story as he sought to connect his turbulent upbringing with the hardship faced by the millions of Americans and urged voters to choose a new path. The one-term senator, who will be just 40 on Inauguration Day, would be the third youngest vice president in history and one of the least experienced if 78-year-old Trump defeats Biden.
But as we meet tonight, we cannot forget that this evening could have been so much different. Instead of a day of celebration, this could have been a day of heartache and mourning. For the last 8 years, President Trump has given everything he has to fight for the people of our country. Now, my work taught me that there is still so much talent and grit in the American heartland. There really is. But for these places to thrive, my friends, we need a leader who fights for the people who built this country.
Nigeria's House of Representatives has donated the sum of 100 million naira in support of Team Nigeria at the upcoming Olympics Games in France. The Deputy Speaker of the House, Ben Kalu, announced this during a visit to the Parliament by the Minister of Sports in the company of Nigeria's 2024 Olympic and Paralympic contingent to unveil their sports kits for the tournament. He urged the private sector and well-meaning Nigerians to support the contingent financially. Super Falcons of Nigeria fell to a slim 1-0 defeat against Canada and their friendly at the La Quinta Football Center, Malaga, on Wednesday night. Olympic champions Canada dominated the opening exchanges and scored the decisive goal in the 18th minute. The Super Falcons had numerous chances to equalize but were let down by their poor finishing. Paris Saint-Germain new signing Jennifer Echegina hit the woodwork 7 minutes from time. The defeat was Super Falcons' first in 2024. Randy Waldrum's side will now shift attention to their opening fixture against Brazil at the 2024 Olympics. The delegation of 18 players, 4 alternate players and officials is scheduled to arrive at Team's Hotel's Mercure aboard minutes before midnight. The Group C clash will hold at the Stade Bordeaux 25th of July. And that's it at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. President Tinubu and Labour to resume new minimum wage talks today. Kenya police have banned demonstrations in Nairobi after deadly rallies. We also told you that Zimbabwe opposition leader and dozens of others have been denied bail. Now remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith, Atibi.